Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're not just dipping our toes, we're launching a full-scale expedition into what you might call the digital fortress. This isn't just about, firewalls and encryption. It's about the intricate, sometimes really frustrating, but totally essential systems, deciding who gets in, what they can touch, and every single move they make inside. And at the heart of this fortress, the ultimate gatekeepers, is what some of our sources kind of playfully call the AAA circus.
Right.
We're talking authentication, authorization, and accounting. You can think of them as the bouncer, the VIP list manager, and maybe the hyper-vigilant auditor at the world's most exclusive cyber party.
That's a great analogy. And yeah, today's deep dive is really your essential shortcut to understanding these three critical pillars of information security. They're absolutely foundational for navigating our digital world, really.
Yeah.
Whether you're managing huge cloud setups or just trying to log into your bank, we're going to pull back the curtain on the complexities, the surprising human side of it all, and the kind of ingenious mechanisms that make AAA work, giving you insights that hopefully go beyond just the basics.
Right. Our mission today is for you to walk away not just knowing what AAA is, but getting why it's always changing, how those trade-offs affect you every day online, and maybe even what the future holds. Which sounds pretty exciting, actually. We've dug through a whole stack of sources to bring you the most important nuggets of knowledge, making sure you get clarity without feeling totally swamped by jargon. So yeah, let's get started. Let's demystify this digital fort.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Starting with the foundational first act of our AAA circus, authentication. This is really where it all begins. At its core, authentication is, well, it's like the digital version of a bouncer squinting at your ID at a club. Right? Maybe even asking for a secret handshake. It's that moment where a system needs to confirm. You claim to be Sarah. Prove it. It's all about verifying your identity.
You've really hit on a critical point there. Authentication isn't just, ticking a box. It's the absolute first line of defense. Without solid authentication, everything else just falls apart. Think about a bank vault, right? If the front door's unlocked, the fancy lasers inside don't mean much if you can't be sure who's walking in.
Good point.
Our sources really stress that effective authentication is the cornerstone. It's the foundation for the integrity and security of everything that happens next in a system. It's what stands between your data and, well, imposters, hackers, or, as one source put it quite colorfully, that persistent bot trying admin with password 123 for the 1,000th time.
Huh. Yeah, we've all seen those logs. So how do systems actually do this? Verify identity. Our sources break down the authentication arsenal into three main types, often called factors. Each has its strengths, and let's be honest, some pretty funny weaknesses we all bump into. First up, we have something you know. This is the most common one, and kind of ironically, often the weakest link.
Right. Passwords, PINs.
Exactly. Passwords, PANs, those security questions, asking for your first pet's name, which
Sure.
is probably plastered all over your Facebook anyway. While it's everywhere, our sources describe this method as being about as secure as leaving your diary open on the kitchen table with a Post-it saying, "Do not read unless you really want to."
Yeah, it's interesting how passwords persist, isn't it? Even though everyone, tech pros and casual users alike, knows they're inherently problematic, we still rely on them so much. And it's not just inertia. Our sources talk about this idea of security fatigue. You've got so many accounts, such complex password rules. It leads to this sort of cognitive bias where convenience just wins out over security.
Oh, nice.
So we lean towards predictable stuff, QWERTY 2025, or little variations on common words, personal dates, just because it's easier to remember. It's this psychology, more than just ignorance, that creates these guessable patterns. And that becomes the real vulnerability, arguably more than the tech itself. Plus, there's economic inertia, slowing down passwordless tech adoption. So passwords, they stick around, flawed as they are.
That security fatigue thing really rings true. Explains a lot of collective password pain. Okay, moving on to the second flavor. Something you have.
Ah, yes.
This covers physical things or digital things you actually possess, like smart cards, those little USB security keys, or that authenticator app on your phone that, beeps at you like an impatient microwave.
These are definitely a step up in security because they're fundamentally harder to fake than just knowing something. An attacker actually needs to get their hands on your physical token or compromise your specific device. That adds a big hurdle.
Right, it's not just guessing a word anymore.
Exactly. It's physical theft or, hacking your actual device. But they're not perfect, obviously. One source brings up that funny but kind of scary point. Unless your adversary is a master pickpocket, You lose your device, or you leave your token in an Uber. Again, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Yeah. It raises that important point about how digital and physical security overlap. Even with a token, you still need good physical security habits and proper device management.
And then we get to the third type, the most sort of futuristic sounding one. Something you are.
Mhm.
Biometrics.
Mm-hmm.
Fingerprints, facial recognition, iris scans. I even read about systems analyzing the unique rhythm in the way you swagger when you type. Sounds super cool, right? Straight out of a spy movie. Flick your wrist, open the door.
It absolutely sounds cool, but the reality of putting it into practice versus that sci-fi ideal, well, that often shows the cracks. Biometrics try to verify something intrinsic about you, sure, but they have their own real-world problems. Think about, sweaty fingers smudging the scanner, right?
Yeah.
Or your face mask completely confusing the facial recognition system.
Oh yeah, the mask issue was huge.
Exactly. Leading to those frustrating error messages. Error. Are you a human or a raccoon? Simple things, environmental factors, even just you changing your appearance or a medical issue can throw these systems off. And there's a bigger issue. Unlike a password, you can't change your fingerprint if it gets compromised. That's a pretty significant security challenge people don't always think about.
Good point. So given that each of these methods, knowing, having, being, has its own quirks and weak spots, relying on just one sounds like asking for trouble. So what's the fix? Is there a holy grail that pulls them together?
That's precisely the question security folks tackled. And the answer, what our sources rightly call the holy grail, is multi-factor authentication, MFA. The genius of MFA is that it combines two or more of these independent categories of authentication. So you might use something like your password, and something you have, like that code from your authenticator app.
Oh, okay, so layers.
Exactly. Layers. Synergy. It creates a much tougher barrier because it avoids that single point of failure. It makes life miserable for hackers, as the sources say. They can't just steal your password. They need your password and your phone, for example. The analogy one source used was great, asking for your ID, your VIP pass, and maybe a DNA sample just to get into the club.
Yeah.
Now, okay, it can feel mildly inconvenient for us users sometimes, but that little bit of friction is the trade-off for massively better security. It really cuts down compromises. The big challenge for companies, though, is getting users on board, finding that sweet spot. Strong security, but minimal hassle, often needs smart prompts, good communication about why it matters.
Now let's circle back to the undisputed divas of authentication, passwords, the comedy of passwords. I think we can all relate to this. Staring at a requirement that feels like, I don't know, cryptic crossword. Our sources nail this feeling. Your password must be at least 12 characters, include a capital letter, a number, a symbol, a haiku, and the blood of a unicorn. And you're just, trying to log into your cat meme forum. It is that universal pain of security rules gone a bit wild.
And what's really insightful is how these well-meaning, complex rules often backfire. The goal is strong, unpredictable passwords, right? But humans, driven by that security fatigue, just find the easiest path.
Yep, minimum effort.
So users end up creating really guessable patterns, tiny changes from old passwords, or worse, writing them down, which totally undermines the security benefit. Sometimes it makes things less secure because users create these workarounds.
Exactly. Which leads us neatly to the supposed saviors, password managers. These tools promise to remember your 47 unique, crazy passwords and simplify everything. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Oh, they absolutely are incredibly helpful, seriously. They give you a secure place to store all those complex, unique passwords. They can generate strong ones for you, fill them in automatically. Takes away a lot of a user burden and cuts down massively on password reuse, which is a huge, huge vulnerability. They centralize and encrypt your credentials. Big improvement for personal security.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? You hit on the critical flaw our sources immediately flag. What happens until you forget the master password, and suddenly you're locked out of your entire digital life, sobbing into a tub of ice cream?
Yeah.
It solves one problem, remembering loads of passwords, but it can create this new, potentially catastrophic single point of failure if that one master key is lost. And getting back in, the recovery process, can be complex or even vulnerable itself.
It really highlights the need for robust recovery options for those master passwords and really good user education about how vital that master password is. If a company rolls out password managers, they need to think about the whole life cycle, including secure recovery, not just the deployment.
And oh, don't even get me started on forced password changes. You know that policy where you have to change your password every 30 or 60 days? Sounds sensible on the surface, right? Fresher passwords, more secure.
Well, the thinking behind that, going back decades actually, was to limit the time an attacker could use a stolen password. If it was compromised, changing it often reduced how long they could exploit it. It was kind of a preventative mindset, assuming passwords would get stolen eventually.
But the reality, as our sources just brilliantly lay out, is often totally counterproductive. Instead of making truly random new passwords each time, what do people do? They use predictable sequences.
Yeah.
Password Jan 2025, password Feb 2025, maybe change the number.
Incrementing numbers, yeah.
Until eventually you're just writing them on a Post-it note and sticking it to your monitor, which, as one source dryly notes, just makes a hacker's job easier than ordering takeout because they can guess the next one.
It's the human element again, isn't it? Undermining the tech, turning a security control into a predictable weakness. That policy, thankfully, is largely being replaced now by recommending longer, more complex passwords that don't expire, especially when combined with MFA.
Okay, so if passwords are such a pain, what's next? Our sources introduce passkeys, hailed as the new kid on the block, promising this amazing passwordless future. The idea is your device handles it all like a loyal butler using cryptographic wonders.
It really is a significant shift. Passkeys use something called public key cryptography, very strong stuff. Basically, you have two linked keys, a public one the service knows, and a private one that never leaves your device.
Okay.
So when you log in, your device uses its private key to sort of cryptographically sign a challenge sent by the service. The service checks that signature with your public key. The real magic is you're proving it's you without ever sending a password or any shared secret that could be phished or stolen. Yeah. This makes passkeys inherently resistant to loads of common attacks, like phishing or credential stuffing, which rely on stealing those shared secrets. It's a fundamental step up in security and hopefully user experience, too.
That sounds genuinely fantastic, like a real leap forward for both security and convenience. But naturally, our sources immediately point to the hurdles, because as soon as you think, great, I need this on all my devices, you realize you might need to sync your passkeys across devices, and now you're juggling QR codes and praying your phone doesn't die mid-login. Back to user experience challenges.
Absolutely. The underlying tech is revolutionary, no doubt. But getting to seamless, universal adoption, that's still a journey. The challenge is building an ecosystem where passkeys are easy to create, manage, recover, and sync across everything. Phones, laptops, different operating systems without adding new frustrations. Our sources, with their typical wit, summed it up with the IKEA furniture analogy.
Oh, I like this already.
The future is bright, but it's also a bit like assembling IKEA furniture promising that you'll probably end up swearing before you get everything to fit perfectly. It perfectly captures where we are. Powerful tech still finding its totally user-friendly groove.
All right, so let's say you've navigated the authentication maze. You've proven who you are. Now it's time for Act 2 of our AAA circus, authorization. This is the bit where the system decides if you're, cool enough for the VIP lounge, allowed to see the top secret files, or if you're basically stuck in the digital equivalent of the kiddie pool, maybe only allowed to fetch virtual coffee. It's not about identity anymore. It's about permissions.
Yeah.
What you can do, what you can see, and what you absolutely positively should not touch. Looking at you, intern who tried to fix the production database.
That's such a crucial distinction. Authentication proves who. Authorization defines what. It's about making sure that even a verified user can only access things and do things appropriate for their role. Without proper authorization, even a legit user, whether they're malicious or just clumsy, could cause chaos, accidentally or on purpose. Our sources really emphasize how vital authorization is for data integrity, meeting regulations, and stopping internal misuse or just accidental data spills. And thinking bigger picture, it's about limiting the damage if an account does get compromised, controlling that blast radius.
And just like authentication had its different methods, authorization has its own sort of permission puzzle. Different ways to structure these access controls. The first, and probably most common, is role-based access control, RBAC. Pretty straightforward idea. You get assigned a role like employee, manager, data analyst, maybe even supreme overlord of IT. Right. And your role comes with a set package of permissions, saying what you can do and see. It's simple, like our source says, like giving everyone a name tag at a party, and the name tag tells you which rooms you can go into.
RBAC is definitely popular because it simplifies things, especially in big organizations. Instead of giving permissions one by one to maybe thousands of users, you set permissions for maybe a dozen roles and then just slot users into those roles. Big reduction in admin work. But our sources point out where it can fall apart, like when you end up with 47 slightly different roles and it gets too complex to manage. Or the classic example, when someone named Karen from accounting insists she needs admin access just to order office supplies.
Oh, I've heard that one before.
Right, it highlights that tension. The need for clear security boundaries versus the day-to-day, often messy demands of the business leads to role creep, where people just collect permissions over time they don't actually need anymore.
Then there's attribute-based access control, ADAC. Our sources call it RBAC's fancy cousin. It's definitely more granular.
Much more, yeah.
Here, permissions are more dynamic, more precise, based on lots of different attributes. Could be about the user, are they in marketing, what's their security clearance, what time is it, or about the environment, are they on a secure company network, or even attributes of the data itself. Is this file marked top secret? And, as the source joked, maybe even did they bring donuts to the meeting?
ABAC gives you incredible flexibility and fine-grained control. Access decisions can be based on all sorts of factors that might change in real time.
Yeah.
Really powerful for complex setups like cloud environments where things are constantly shifting. So for example, a document might only be viewable by someone in marketing during work hours and only from a company laptop.
Wow, okay. Very specific.
Very specific. But the flip side is the complexity. Defining all those attributes, writing the policies, managing them, troubleshooting when something goes wrong, it can turn into a bureaucratic nightmare faster than you can say compliance audit. That fine control comes with a hefty administrative price tag. You need smart policy tools and you need to be meticulous, or you risk mistakes and security holes.
Okay. Next up, discretionary access control, DAC. Our sources call this one the Wild West of authorization. Sounds a bit chaotic.
It can be. With DAC, the owner of a resource, like the person who created a file or a folder, gets to decide who else can access it and what they can do, read, write, etc. Control is decentralized, put in the hands of the individual creator.
So like sharing a Google Doc.
Exactly like sharing a Google Doc or setting permissions on files on your personal computer. It's common in those kinds of settings or smaller teams. It gives autonomy, which is convenient, but it puts the security button entirely on individual users, which can lead to really inconsistent security across a whole company. The analogy our source uses is perfect. It's like letting your roommate decide who can raid your fridge. Spoiler. Everyone's eating your leftovers. And probably your fancy cheese, too, because there's no central policy, no oversight. It's easy to share too widely by mistake.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Okay, and the last one, mandatory access control, MAC, described as the military-grade option. Sounds intense. Strict rules needing clearance higher than a kite.
MSC is definitely the most rigid approach. You typically find it in places like government agencies, military, intelligence communities, places where information classification and strict separation are absolutely critical. It works on a hierarchy. Everything, users and data, gets a sensitivity label like confidential, secret, top secret. You can only access something if your clearance level is equal to or higher than the data's classification. And information can generally only flow up the hierarchy, not down.
So you can't accidentally leak secrets.
Exactly. It's designed for maximum security against leaks, preventing even authorized users from mistakenly declassifying sensitive info. But the trade-off, as our source puts it, it's about as user-friendly as a cactus. Prickly and flexible. That rigidity is great for security in those high-stakes environments, but it makes it totally impractical for most businesses or consumer apps where you need collaboration and flexibility.
Okay, so that's the theory. But in the real world, authorization can often feel like, well, a fiasco. Picture this. You're a new employee, keen, ready to work. You just need access to the shared drive for your team. Simple, right? You click, wait, access denied. Flashing red.
The dreaded red banner.
Then begins the quest.
Yeah.
You beg IT for help, and eventually they send you a 47-page form to fill out in triplicate, needing 3 manager signatures, a blood sample. Okay, maybe not a blood sample.
Hopefully not.
And a prophecy from an oracle. It's that incredibly frustrating bureaucratic loop that just kills productivity.
That scenario perfectly captures the tension between security, particularly the principle of least privilege we'll talk about, and just getting work done. And what makes it even more maddening, as our sources point out, is the inconsistency. While you're battling forms, maybe the CEO's nephew, who started last week, somehow has admin rights to everything and is renaming critical production files to LOLcats final draft.docs. It really highlights issues of fairness, accountability, and crucially, whether security policies are actually enforced consistently, regardless of who you are. That inconsistency isn't just unfair, It creates massive security holes. Easy for an insider, even accidentally, to cause big problems.
This brings us right to that fundamental idea you mentioned,
Yeah.
the principle of least privilege.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of, I don't know, medieval, but it's super important in cybersecurity.
Absolutely central.
The basic idea is simple. You should only have access to exactly what you need to do your job, nothing more, nothing less. Seems logical.
Totally logical. It's a cornerstone of secure design. It minimizes the attack surface, fewer things an attacker can potentially access.
Yeah.
And crucially, it limits the damage if an account is compromised or if an employee makes a mistake or acts maliciously. You contain the blast radius. But the practical application can be tricky. As our sources sometimes describe it, the ideal can sometimes turn into IT stripping away your permissions until you can't even open a spreadsheet without calling for backup.
Yeah, overcorrection.
Right. Which hammers productivity and causes huge user frustration. There's this constant negotiation between tight security and efficient work. Misinterpreting least privilege as almost no privilege can be just as bad for the business as giving out too much access is for security. It needs careful, ongoing adjustment, fine-tuning.
Okay, on to Act 3 of our AAA circus, accounting. This is the part that watches your every move like a hawk with a clipboard, meticulously noting everything down.
The nosy neighbor.
Exactly. Accounting, or maybe more accurately, auditing in security terms, is the digital equivalent of your mom checking your browser history after you swore you were just doing homework.
Or, yeah, your nosy neighbor logging every time you leave the house. In security, accounting is about keeping a detailed, verifiable record of who did what, when, and why. It tracks every login, every file change, every system setting tweaked, every access attempt, successful or failed, any suspicious stuff. Thinking bigger picture, accounting provides that crucial forensic trail. You need it to understand security incidents, prove your meeting regulations, and hold people accountable for what they do on the system. Without it, if something goes wrong, you're completely in the dark.
Our sources actually call accounting the unsung hero of information security. Which makes sense. It's maybe not as flashy as catching hackers live or building impenetrable firewalls, but is absolutely vital. The quiet workhorse.
It really is the unsung hero, because when something does go wrong, a security breach happens, or, Dave from accounting accidentally deletes the company's entire payroll database.
Not Dave again.
Poor Dave. When that happens, the audit logs become your absolute best friend. They are totally indispensable for incident response. It's like a detailed crime scene investigation. These logs let security teams piece together exactly what happened step by step, find the root cause, understand how bad the damage is, and figure out how to stop it happening again without those logs. Understanding an incident, fixing it properly, it'd be almost impossible, leading to longer outages, more data loss, maybe even big fines for non-compliance, which raises the whole legal and regulatory side. Many rules require you to keep detailed audit trails.
So what are these logs exactly? Our sources describe them as the diary of your system, recording every login, file access, config change, and every suspicious click on that free iPhone pop-up. Sounds incredibly detailed.
Yeah, they are. Essentially a time-stamped list of events, who did it, user ID, where from, IP address, what happened, event type, when it happened, maybe even the specific command used or file touched. Critical info. But here's the big catch, and our sources really hammer this home. Logs are only useful if someone actually reads and analyzes them.
Right.
So many organizations treat logs like that gym membership they bought in January, full of good intentions, paid for, but gathering dust by March. The sheer volume of data, especially in big companies, is overwhelming. Often leads to neglect, leaving huge blind spots.
And even when they are looked at, our sources say it's usually by an overworked IT guy who'd rather be playing Call of Duty than sifting through 10,000 lines of user-failed login attempt for the 10th time that hour.
Exactly. It's a huge, often thankless task. Highlights that human problem. Just too much raw data to process effectively.
Okay, so volume is one issue. What else?
Well, it's not just the volume, it's also the integrity and storage. Our sources talk about the storage problem. Logs grow faster than a viral TikTok video. Needs tons of disk space, which costs money, and you have to decide how long to keep them. But even more critical, logs are a hacker's dream to tamper with. If an attacker gets in, one of their first goals is often to scrub the logs, delete the evidence of their entry and actions. As one source said, it's like erasing the security camera footage before robbing a bank. wipes out the proof. Scary.
Yeah. So it raises big questions about securing the logs themselves. You need things like immutable logging, storing logs securely offsite where they can't be easily tampered with, strict access controls on the logging systems.
So to fight this flood of data and the problem of manual review, we have something often called the SIM dream, or maybe sometimes the SIM nightmare for the people running it.
Huh. And be both?
Security information and event management systems, SIMs, the superheroes of accounting.
SIMs are definitely designed to tackle log management at scale. Their main job is to collect, aggregate, and normalize logs from all sorts of different places across your network, firewalls, servers, apps, databases, everything. Then, the really clever part. They use complex rules, sometimes behavioral analytics, even machine learning, to analyze and correlate all that data, to spot suspicious activity that a human would almost certainly miss. So they connect the dots.
Exactly. They look for patterns across different systems that might signal a threat. Like, why is Dave from development, who works 9 to 5, suddenly logging in at 3 a.m. from a weird IP address in Uzbekistan after trying 10 wrong passwords? A human might see those individual events scattered across logs, but the SIM pulls it together. It turns raw data into actionable security intelligence, crucial for detecting threats faster.
They sound incredibly powerful, like having a super vigilant digital detective on the case 247, seeing the whole picture, not just isolated clues.
Mm.
But there's always a but, right? Our sources highlight the downsides.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful, yes, but they come with a price tag that makes CFOs cry.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, a setup process that feels like assembling a spaceship with a paperclip, an instruction manual written in ancient Sumerian, and definitely not enough coffee.
That's not far off for complex deployments. The cost, the complexity of configuration, tuning them so they don't flood you with false alarms, needing skilled people to run them, it can be a massive undertaking. Many organizations end up with SIEMs that are underused or not configured optimally because it's just so hard.
Okay, so we've looked at authentication, authorization, and accounting individually. Now let's weave it all together. See the AAA circus in action with a story. Meet Sarah. She's a new employee at Megacorp, a company that, as our sources cheekily put it, takes security as seriously as a toddler takes nap time, lots of initial enthusiasm, then easily distracted by shiny things.
Yeah.
A relatable scenario to show the real-world challenges and how these three A's interact.
This kind of narrative is great because it really shows those friction points we all encounter. It's like a miniature version of the daily struggle where security measures, totally necessary, feel like roadblocks to just getting stuff done, and how that can lead to risky workarounds.
So, Sarah's first day. Needs to log into her laptop. Authentication time. Username.password, which she carefully wrote on a Post-it and hid under her keyboard because, super secure storage.
Oh dear, the classic Post-it.
Right. The system then, quite correctly, demands multi-factor authentication. MFA prompt pops up.
And here comes the user experience test, where MFA, despite being great for security, can feel like a hurdle. Sarah fumbles with her phone, tries to scan a QR code that just won't focus, says a little prayer the Authenticator app doesn't crash.
We've all been there.
Totally. It's that common scene. 3 tries, a few frustrated sighs, maybe a mild existential crisis before, finally, she's in. It just highlights that balancing act. Strong security versus smooth user experience. Clunky MFA processes really drive users nuts and can lead them to look for ways around it, ironically making things less secure.
Okay, Sarah's authenticated. Success, now for authorization. She needs the marketing team's shared drive for onboarding. Simple task, she clicks, anticipates, bam. Access denied. Big red letters, digital brick wall.
The authorization roadblock. And this triggers the bureaucratic quest, so common in big places. She emails IT support, gets an automated reply, waits 24 hours, gets a real reply with a link to a digital form longer than her manager's approval, a detailed essay on why she needs access to a folder literally called Marketing Team's Shared Drive.
It's Kafkaesque.
Pretty much. After a week of emails back and forth, 2 chase-up calls, and a persistent low-grade headache, she finally gets access, read-only access, just in time for the project deadline to wish past, making her initial task pointless. It's the principle of least privilege in action, maybe taken a bit too far, slowed down by inefficient authorization processes, really questions how responsive IT needs to be while still keeping things locked down.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Because all this time, Sarah's battling logins and permissions. In the background, accounting is humming along. That SIEM system, always watching, is logging everything.
Meticulously.
User, Sarah, attempted login 9:08 3 a.m. User Sarah, MFA success 9:08 a.m. User Sarah, attempted access marketing team drive 9:10 a.m. Access denied.
And then comes the twist that perfectly links all three A's and shows why accounting is so vital. The logs continue. User Sarah Googled how to quit job gracefully at 9:15 a.m.
Oh, Sarah.
But here's the real kicker. A month later, Megacorp gets hit by a data breach. The forensic investigation starts. And what did the audit logs show? It wasn't frustrated, Sarah. The logs pinpoint the source, an account named LOL Cat's admin nephew.
The CEO's nephew, of course.
Belongs to the CEO's nephew, who somehow still has admin rights to everything, including the main production database, despite only being hired to, quote, streamline social media memes.
Unbelievable.
This scenario just perfectly shows how accounting is critical for finding the truth. It exposes those fundamental flaws or policy gaps in authorization, like giving admin rights to the meme intern, even when authentication maybe looked okay initially. Really drives home the need for continuous auditing, managing privileged access super carefully, and regularly reviewing who has access to what, especially powerful accounts.
That whole story just perfectly highlights the disconnects, doesn't it? How good security like MFA can be undercut by bad habits like Post-it notes. How vital authorization is, but how it can turn into a bureaucratic mess. And ultimately, how critical and interconnected all three AAA parts are, especially when things inevitably go wrong. So as Sarah's little adventure shows, this whole AAA system, while absolutely essential, is definitely not perfect. It's like trying to herd cats while riding a unicycle and juggling flaming torches made of compliance documents. There are some really big ongoing challenges companies face.
A major one, constantly highlighted in our sources, is that fundamental tension. User experience versus security. It's a constant push and pull. On one side, you've got the security team. They love MFA, complex passwords changed often, super tight permissions. Their job is protect the assets, full stop.
Makes sense.
On the other side, you've got the users. They just want to do their jobs efficiently without needing a PhD in cybersecurity every time they need a file. They want speed, ease of use.
Also makes sense.
Finding that balance. Our sources say it's like trying to convince a cat to take a bath. It's possible, but expect scratches, hissing, and probably some resentment. It really puts the human factor front and center. The best tech system can be useless if users are too frustrated or find ways around it. Security needs to be intuitive, built into the workflow, not just bolted on.
And then there's just the sheer scale. Companies grow, add more systems, move to the cloud, have people working everywhere. The AAA system has to cope. Managing thousands of users, devices, permissions across tons of different apps and places, it gets incredibly complex fast.
Oh, absolutely. That's the scalability challenge. It's described vividly as like playing 4D chess with a hangover, blindfolded, while someone occasionally moves the pieces when you're not looking.
Wow, okay. That paints a picture.
The complexity just explodes as you add more users, more resources, more detailed access rules. Trying to manage that manually is just asking for errors. And errors in AAA can be catastrophic. One wrong permission, one missed setting, and you've got a breach on your hands, or at minimum, a massive compliance fine. It really underlines why automation, smart identity management tools, IAM, and centralized platforms are becoming so critical. Humans just can't keep up accurately at that scale.
Now, AAA is pretty good generally against outsiders trying to break in, but then comes the ultimate plot twist, right? The insider threat. What about Dave from accounting? Not accidentally deleting this time, but maybe skimming client data to sell on the dark web for his early retirement fund.
Insider threats are uniquely tricky because these are people who already have legitimate access, they've passed authentication, they have some level of authorization. As our source points out, no amount of MFA can stop a disgruntled employee, or even just a negligent one, who already has too much access.
And it's not just the malicious person. It could be someone whose account got compromised, their legitimate credentials stolen, or just a well-meaning employee who clicks the wrong link in a phishing email and accidentally lets the bad guys in. They become the Trojan horse.
Right. Using legitimate access for bad ends.
Exactly. It shows why just focusing on the perimeter, keeping bad guys out, isn't enough. You need strong internal monitoring, things like user behavior analytics, UBA, to spot weird activity from inside accounts, and rigorous application of that principle of least privilege. Because the attack can absolutely come from within, often exploiting existing permissions rather than breaking doors down. And finally, the elephant in the room for any big IT project: cost. Building and running a really solid, comprehensive AAA system. It's not cheap. Our sources mention the hit. Hardware, software licenses that often scale per user, needing specialized staff, plus the poor IT guy's therapy bills from all the password reset calls.
The financial side, the cost, is definitely a major factor for any size organization, really. It's not just buying the tech up front, it's the ongoing maintenance, the skilled people needed to manage and monitor it 2004/7, the continuous training for everyone involved. But, as one source warns quite cynically, cheap security is like buying a used parachute. It might look okay, but you really don't want to test its actual condition mid-jump.
Yikes. Good analogy.
Trying to cut corners on AAA is just a false economy. It can lead to way bigger costs down the line, huge financial losses from a breach, destroyed reputation, massive legal fees and fines. It really needs a strategic, long-term investment view. See it as enabling the business safely, not just a cost center to be minimized.
So looking forward then, the future of AAA sounds pretty shinier than a new iPhone and buzzing with innovation. We're hearing about things like zero trust, AI-driven authentication, even blockchain for accounting. Sounds like more jargon, but maybe some real potential too.
Definitely potential, and zero trust is a big one. It's a fundamental shift away from the old trust but verify model. The core idea is simple. Trust no one, verify everything. Always.
Okay, how does that work?
Traditionally, once you were authenticated and inside the network walls, you were kind of trusted. Zero Trust flips that. It demands continuous verification for every access attempt, every time, whether you're inside or outside the network, trying to reach any resource. Our source called it basically the cybersecurity equivalent of checking under the bed for monsters every night,
Yeah.
even if you've lived there for years.
Paranoia as a service.
Kind of, but smart paranoia. It means constantly checking. Is this user still who they say they are? Is their device still healthy? Is this access request appropriate given their location, the data sensitivity, the time of day? Access decisions become dynamic, contextual, not just a one-time entry pass. Implementing it fully is a huge job, a journey, not a destination, but it promises to really limit damage from insiders or compromised accounts.
And then AI, making authentication smarter, like facial recognition that knows you're having a bad hair day but still lets you in.
Sounds cool. AI in authentication definitely holds promise for making things both more secure and less annoying for users. It could analyze things like behavioral biometrics, your unique typing speed, how you move your mouse, how you hold your phone along with other signals in real time. Based on your normal patterns, it could adapt. Maybe only ask for extra MFA if something seems off, making logins smoother most of the time but stepping up security when needed. Frictionless security is the dream. But it's still early days. There are challenges around data bias and algorithms, transparency, and just the sheer processing power needed to do this constantly for everyone.
And for accounting, you mentioned blockchain.
Yeah.
For tamper-proof logs.
Yeah.
That sounds like it solves the log integrity problem we talked about earlier.
In theory, yes. Blockchain's whole design, distributed cryptographically linked blocks, could create an audit trail that's incredibly hard, almost impossible to change secretly. Every log entry locked in. Solves the tampering issue, gives you strong non-repudiation, proof someone did something. But the reality check from our sources is pretty stark. Most companies are still struggling to get their sums working right, and some are still battling basic Excel for audits. So widespread use of blockchain for corporate audit logs, we're probably a long way off. The infrastructure, the speed, the complexity, it's more a future possibility than something happening widely now.
And looking even further out, this disruptive force, quantum computing. Our sources mention it has this huge double-edged potential.
It really is fascinating and kind of terrifying. Quantum computing is a potential game changer for AAA in two completely opposite ways. On one hand, it could revolutionize AAA, maybe enabling new cryptographic methods that are truly unbreakable by even future quantum computers themselves, fundamentally more secure systems. On the other hand, powerful quantum computers could also break it faster than you can say quantum supremacy. They could potentially shatter the encryption algorithms we rely on today for almost everything: secure websites, digital signatures, password protection, making current systems useless overnight.
Wow, so it could save us or destroy us, digitally speaking.
It really connects to that bigger picture of tech disruption. Huge advances offer amazing opportunities, but also create massive new threats. It's why there's already a big push towards developing post-quantum cryptography, new methods resistant to quantum attacks. It's a constant race.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? What does this all mean for us just trying to get through our digital days, or for the pros trying to manage it all?
Bringing it back home, authentication, authorization, and accounting. They really are the unsung, often maybe begrudged heroes of information security.
Absolutely.
They're working away constantly behind the scenes, an evolving barrier keeping our digital lives safer from hackers, from insiders, and, let's be honest, sometimes from our own mistakes or forgetfulness.
Couldn't agree more. And they are definitely not perfect. As our sources said so well, sometimes they're clunky, sometimes they're infuriating, and sometimes they make you want to throw your laptop out the window. We've all felt that. But, and this is the critical, but without them, the internet would just be a chaotic free-for-all. Imagine a Black Friday sale with absolutely no security guards, no rules, just everyone grabbing whatever they can. That's kind of what it would be like. AAA provides the essential structure, the invisible framework, that lets our digital world operate with some degree of safety, order, and accountability.
So remember, the AAA circus, with all its complexities and frustrations, is ultimately there to protect you. It's a complicated, always changing field, but just understanding these basics, the who, the what, the when, why, gives you a big advantage in navigating your digital life safely. Whether you're just a user, a manager making decisions, or someone working in cybersecurity, it's about being informed, knowing the trade-offs, appreciating that difficult balance. So next time you're grumbling at an MFA prompts or waiting for IT to grant you access, maybe just take a second to remember the massive effort going on behind the scenes to keep things secure. And on that note, maybe take a moment later today to review your own password habits. Just saying. Is it still password 2025? Be honest. That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.